He was 28 years old. She was 22. He was 21. One of them walked away. Two of them didn't. For 36 years, Floyd William Parrott lived his life. He worked. He moved states. He grew old. And Cheryl Henry and Andy Atkinson stayed 22 and 21 forever, buried in the memory of a city that never stopped asking who did this. This week, Houston got its answer. Parrott was arrested in Lincoln, Nebraska on March 25, 2026. Capital murder charges, 2 counts, and a DNA match so clean and so damning that 36 years of silence collapsed in a matter of weeks after a single tip reached the right detective. August 22, 1990. Cheryl Henry and Andy Atkinson went out for the night. They were young and in love. They met at Bayou Mama's nightclub on West Hemer in West Houston. Cheryl's sister joined them for a while, then headed home. Andy and Cheryl stayed. Sometime after midnight, they drove to a remote wooded area near Enclave Parkway that locals called Lover's Lane. It was dark, isolated, the kind of place where no one would bother you. That was the last time anyone who loved them saw them alive. When Cheryl didn't come home that night and didn't show up the next day, her family called police. A security guard doing his routine morning patrol near 1300 Enclave Parkway spotted Andy's white Honda Civic sitting alone at the end of a dead-end street. The car hadn't moved. He approached. He found Cheryl's purse inside, her shoes, but no Cheryl. Police found her body in the nearby woods. Someone had placed wooden boards on top of her to hide her. She had been sexually assaulted. Her throat had been cut. Andy was found about 100 yards away, propped against a tree. He had been tied there. His throat had also been cut. Both of them had their hands tied behind their backs. The medical examiner confirmed both deaths were caused by sharp force injuries to the neck. Houston police responded, secured the scene, and launched what would become one of the longest and most painful investigations in the city's history. Neither family would ever be the same, and for 36 years, no one was charged. Andy's cousin, Tim Godwin, spoke about those early days in an interview in 2025. He said he initially thought it would take 3 to 6 months, that there would be a trial and justice would come. But months turned to years. 1 year became 5, then 10. Even after 15 years, there were still no arrests, no suspects named, only grief and unanswered questions. The families kept speaking out publicly. They kept the case alive. They held on to the belief that one day someone would come forward. That day came 36 years later, but it didn't come the way anyone expected. The man who police say killed Cheryl and Andy was not a stranger to law enforcement. Floyd William Parrott had a criminal history that, in hindsight, puts him uncomfortably close to this crime on every level. In May 1988, 2 years before the murders, he was arrested for impersonating a peace officer. He was driving a car equipped with emergency lights. He would stop drivers and offer not to ticket them in exchange for cash. When police searched his car and home, they found badges from multiple law enforcement agencies, a driver's license with his photo and someone else's name, police radios, and a light bar. The work address he gave at that arrest was just over 1 mile from where Cheryl and Andy's bodies were found. That same area was described at the time as remote and largely undeveloped. Parrott knew that area. He worked near it. He knew what it looked like in the dark. In December 1988, Parrott was arrested again, this time for carrying a weapon, a blue steel revolver. The court ordered it returned to him after his case was resolved. That specific revolver would later match the description given by a sexual assault victim in June 1990, 2 months before Cheryl and Andy were killed. In May 1990, 3 months before the murders, Parrott was arrested a third time for impersonating a peace officer. He was released on bond, and in August 1990, Cheryl Henry and Andy Atkinson were murdered. 1 week after their bodies were found, Parrott was back in a courtroom, pleading guilty to the impersonation charge. He was sentenced to 2 years in jail. He served it, and then he walked free. While the Lovers Lane case sat open on a detective's desk in Houston, the DNA existed from the beginning. During Cheryl's autopsy, investigators collected biological evidence from the sexual assault. That evidence was preserved, but in 1990, DNA processing was expensive and slow. It took 17 years. In 2007, that DNA was finally analyzed, and it matched DNA from a separate sexual assault case. A woman had been attacked in North Harris County in June 1990, 2 months before the Lovers Lane murders. She didn't know her attacker, but she gave investigators a detailed physical description. DNA from that case matched the Lovers Lane evidence. Same man, same DNA profile, but no name. The suspect was not in any national database. Investigators spent the next years comparing that profile against at least 24 possible suspects. Not one matched. They tried familial DNA searching, a technique that uses partial matches to identify suspects through their relatives. They chased hundreds of leads. In 2001, an anonymous letter arrived claiming to have information. It led nowhere. The case remained open. The families remained without answers. Cheryl's mother died without seeing this day. Andy's father died without seeing this day. Shane Henry, Cheryl's sister, received the call from investigators on Wednesday, March 25, 2026. She told reporters it felt unreal, that after 35 years of nothing, it was hard to believe they finally had him. She said it was heartbreaking that her parents didn't make it to this moment, but she felt their presence anyway. The break came from a tip, not fully anonymous, as some outlets reported. The tipster gave investigators their name and contact information. A detective followed up with them directly to confirm the details. The name they provided was Floyd William Parrott. Cold case. Detective B.W. Nabors received the tip in late 2025 and started digging. He found a 1996 Houston police report. In that case, Parrott was identified as a suspect in a sexual assault. He claimed the encounter was consensual. The grand jury did not indict him, but DNA from that case had been collected and stored. And recently, that DNA was uploaded to CODIS, the National Combined DNA Index System. CODIS automatically compares DNA profiles across cases nationwide. When Parrott's 1996 DNA profile entered the system, the result was immediate. It matched the DNA from Cheryl Henry's autopsy. It also matched the DNA from the June 1990 sexual assault case. The same man. 3 cases, one DNA profile, finally with a name. Investigators confirmed Parrott was not in police custody during any of the 3 crimes. He was free during the June 1990 assault, free during the August 1990 murders, and free during the August 1996 assault. When detectives recently ran his 1988 work address through Google Maps, they noted it was just over 1 mile from the Lovers Lane crime scene. On March 25, 2026, Houston police and FBI agents traveled to Lincoln, Nebraska. They found Parrott there. They interviewed him. He denied ever knowing Cheryl Henry. They arrested him the same day. He did not waive his right to contest extradition. His next court date is April 30th. There is something specific about how Parrott is believed to have approached his victims that night that the charging documents make clear without stating it directly. Parrott had been impersonating police officers for years. He had badges. He had a light bar. He had police radios. He had a license with a fake name. Someone who uses that kind of setup doesn't use it to collect cash from random drivers every time. They use it to create compliance, to get people to stop, to follow instructions without immediately feeling threatened. If Parrott approached Andy and Cheryl's car that night, presenting himself as law enforcement, their first reaction would have been to comply. That compliance may have been exactly how a 28-year-old man was able to control 2 young people, bind their hands, and kill them both before either could escape. The crime scene details described in the charging documents also paint a picture of someone who was not in a hurry after the killings. Golf balls taken from Andy's car were found, placed in a deliberate pattern, pointing toward where Cheryl's body was hidden. A $20 bill was found at the scene, under circumstances investigators described as unusual. Cheryl's body had been covered with wooden boards. These are not the actions of someone who panicked and ran. These are the actions of someone who spent time at that scene after both victims were dead. Someone who arranged things. Someone who had a reason to leave specific objects in specific places. Forensic behavioral analysts call that kind of post-offense behavior a signature. It stayed in the case file for 36 years, waiting for a name to attach to it. Cold cases solved after 3 or more decades are rare. Evidence degrades, witnesses die, investigators cycle out. The Lovers Lane case survived all of that because someone preserved the 1990 DNA correctly across 35 years, and because someone recently uploaded Parrott's 1996 DNA into CODIS, a bureaucratic procedural decision that allowed the automated match that broke this case open. Without that upload, the tip from 2025 goes nowhere. Parrott stays in Nebraska. 2 families stay without answers. The hero of this case is not just the detective who followed the tip. It is also whoever made the decision that a decades-old DNA sample from an uncharged case deserved a place in the national database.